Hello everyone. So today we're going to talk about the match between Keymer and Carlsen. So we know that Anish Giri was able to defeat Gukesh in round 2, and that was quite an endgame. Even this match in which Carlsen defeated Keymer was quite a thrilling endgame. And even though Carlsen had 2 extra pawns, he had to be extremely careful and leave no stone unturned to ensure that he was eventually able to dominate in the game against Keymer. So, how did this game play out and how did Carlsen manage to win against Keymer? Let's find out in this video. D4 is played by Keymer, who was playing white. F6 by Carlsen. C4, G6, knight to C3, D5. So this is the Grunfeld defense. This is a top level defense that is also played by amateurs. Knight to F3, bishop to G7, bishop to G5. Now this is not the main line here, mind you, but this is still absolutely playable for white. So nothing to be too disappointed about the opening here for Keymer. Okay, so knight to E4, bishop to F4, knight takes C3, bishop takes C3, C6. Now this is an interesting choice by Magnus Carlsen. This is most certainly a sideline. We'll see how that happens. E3 by Keymer. Okay, knight, the castling takes place by Magnus Carlsen. Queen to B3, queen to A5, bishop to E2. This, I believe, is a mistake because you're not leaving too many squares for the bishop to occupy. If the bishop had gone here, for example, it would have made more sense. Here meaning on D3, but instead he chooses to go to E2. Okay, so D takes C4, and this is of course the most logical response for Carlsen. Bishop takes C4, knight to D7, and then bishop to G5. So the last move that was played by Keymer, that is bishop to G5. This actually helps Magnus Carlsen in a lot of ways because this move is the catalyst for white's position to drop slightly, because black can improve position with moves like the one that he played right after, which is B5. It helps him to dominate on the queen side quite a lot, and this is surely going to give him an advantage in the endgame. Bishop to E2, rook to E8, occupying the center just a little more. Okay, finally Keymer castles. It happened a little later on in the game, but it happened still. One should ideally be able to castle within the first 10 moves, like they say conventionally speaking, but move number 14 is also alright. Okay, knight to B6. So black just has prepared bishop to E6 with tempo, right? Followed by C5, which is a typical break in the Grunfeld. Move number 15 is E4 by Keymer. This is also an interesting choice because it doesn't really seem to do anything except perhaps to prevent the bishop prevent the knight to move forward here to D5. Okay, bishop to E6 by Carlsen. Queen to C2, C5. C5 is a nice move, right? It is just an invitation for D5, which is this pawn moving here. And we will get the typical Grunfeld structure with white as well, a majority on the king side. And Black, of course, will possess the majority on the queen side. So d5 is played as is expected from white. Bishop to g4, and then bishop to d2. Okay, e6 is a surprising move. This is another typical idea though after white's d5 move, because you really don't want all these pawns here to stay for too long, because this is ruining the center for black. So you would want to break the pawn structure, which is what Keymer is trying to do here. Okay, rook to b1, c4 by Carlsen. Again, you can see how much he is pushing forward his queen side pawn. He does that, and this is one of the reasons why Carlsen is able to dominate the endgame, because he keeps pushing the pawns forward as much as possible, so that the possibility of their promotion in the end is high. Okay, d takes e6 as was being hoped for by Carlsen. Rook takes e6, knight to d4, bishop takes e2, knight takes e2, and then a6. So this is a very nice prophylactic move by Magnus Carlsen, because now b5 is protected and everything is safe, right? You cannot have the rook attacking the b5 pawn anymore. It's a solid structure that Carlsen has been able to achieve on the queen side, we can say now. Okay, knight to d4, rook to e8. It's a non-move, you could say. Rook to e1, trying to protect this pawn a little more in case of any further attack. Okay, knight to a4. This is preparing to put the knight on the d3 outpost, right? Mind you, this is going to be the d3 outpost. The knight will move to d5 and then d3 right here. So it's going to happen 2 moves later, but the preparation has begun. Knight to c6. This is putting pressure on the queen. The queen withdraws to c7, knight to b4. So you can see how many times the knights have already moved for both the opponents. Okay, so knight to c5. You could see what Carlsen is trying to do now. He's going to try and create an outpost here, but then since we have the knight already here on b4, it will be difficult for Magnus Carlsen to do that. So instead he moves to d5. Okay, so white here moves to d5 and puts pressure on the queen again. Carlsen is pretty cool-headed. He moves his queen to c6, a bishop to g5, knight takes e4. Okay, so here Carlsen just gave an exchange, but taking the central pawn and c3 pawn will be absolutely terrible for white, right? Okay, rook takes e7, bishop takes e7, knight takes c3, rook to c1, a5, again pushing up the pawn, bishop to g5, b4, bishop to d2, rook to d8, h4. Okay, so now Keymer is trying to push his pawns forward and put some pressure on the king's side of Carlsen. Carlsen is looking aggressive. He moves his rook to d3. And you know what happens when the rook is able to come to these squares in the end game. It usually means something frightening for the opponent. Okay, but Keymer is unafraid. He continues pushing his h-pawn forward, higher the h-pawn. G takes h5. It's a rather committal move, right? Bishop takes c3. Bishop takes c3. Queen to e2. You can see how this battery is being prepared here. So, and of course, this pawn is also getting threatened. Queen to d5, protecting the pawn on h5. A check with queen to e8, king to g7, rook to e3, h6, queen to e4, queen takes e4. So here we have a winning rook endgame with 2 pawns up for Magnus Carlsen. So rook takes e4, b3. You have rook takes c4, b takes a2, rook to a4, and then you have the promotion. Rook takes a1, bishop takes a1, rook takes a1, so just exchanges here. Rook to d5, and of course when you have a setting like this, right, with 2 pawns down for white, the end game is looking just lost, right? Rook to a4, king to f6. So of course here black is trying to improve his king. The first thing which is in the end game to do, and this is a very important one, you have to ensure that the king centralizes himself. The king can occupy quite a few squares, so you want to exploit that. King to f1, king to e6, king to e2, rook to f5, f3, king to d6, and here you will see some of these moves which are quite predictable, just a dance of the king and the rook, right? Who blinks first, that's what's going on. This continues for a while. Okay, so rook takes g3. Now this is a brilliant move, right? Because you've taken the g3 pawn, you've created h5 pawn as a passed pawn, this pawn right here. It can't be stopped, and the white king is just cut off. It cannot afford to come to these squares any longer, right? F, G, rows are just gone. The winning plan is to play h4 for black. Followed by rook to g5. And then roll the h-pawn with the king in tow. So you have the king, which is going to support the h-pawn, and the rook teaming up. And like they say, teamwork is the dream work. And that's what happens. H4, rook to A8, king to H5, king to F2, rook to G6, rook to A5 check, offering an exchange. Nobody is stopping that pawn. G2 check. And Keymer in this position resigned because the black king will come to protect the pawn on G4. And then rook to G3 followed by an H2 with a clearly winning position. Right, so it was a magical endgame by Carlsen, who improved the position gradually and didn't allow any serious counterplay from Keymer. So hopefully you enjoyed this game just like I did. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.